So I wanted to talk about the new upcoming character because they seem to be a current controversial topic at the moment because they don't seem to be a very strong character based on their kit and what we've seen so far. I honestly think she's not as bad as people claim her to be. I think people are just looking at her to be a hyper carry or a main damage dealer, but for me, she honestly looks more like a utility character. So I guess I'll explain. Essentially, what I think Mihoyo was going for in Dehya was a sort of tank-like role on the team, someone that could soak up damage for the party members and then deal damage back when she swapped in. I would have thought of her to be more like a revenge damage dealer, which would have been nice. She would soak up damage and then whatever damage she took, she would then have an increase in damage based on that percentage of the damage that she withtook, which I thought would have been a cool mechanic for a character, but it doesn't seem like she's actually going to pan out that way anyway. Dehya, however, is the very first character to have a pyro coordinated attack, which enables her to apply pyro off field, which is very nice. And I also was interested in seeing what people would be able to do or what sort of teams people would be able to come up with when having her on a team. She could very well replace Toma for Virgin teams if you're trying to run those types of teams as well. Her field that she places down would also give interruption resistance, which is very nice for parties that lack the interruption resistance and for characters that typically need it, characters like Sino and other characters that can be very annoying to be interrupted mid-attack. And also, because of her tanking capabilities, she would actually be able to negate you having to need a healer in the party, since essentially she'd just be soaking up all the damage, and you wouldn't need to bring a healer on the team because she just heals herself back to full anyway. So with one character, you'd be able to get someone who can proc pyro reactions, apply pyro off field. She'd give interruption resistance, which could be nice, and she would also take away the healing needs that your party would possibly need and have them or have that healer put on another party. Either way, I still think she's going to have some viability in some way. I wouldn't put it past Mihoyo to add mechanics to start making a character more viable. Just look at the whole Kokomi situation. People had thought that she was garbage simply because because they wanted her to be a damage dealing healer, and then proceeded to remove her crit rate, which just negated her entire damage, or any aspect of her dealing any damage, I should say. But later on, people found other means of use for her, like her support role on the team. Her being Catalyst, she could equip Thrilling Tales. She was Hydro, which is one of the best elements in the game at the current moment, since a lot of Hydro reactions are very good. She had really good Hydro application because of her skills ICD. She could heal, and she could use support stats like Tenacity of the Millilith and now Deepwood, which provided good buffs for the team. All in all, making her an actually very viable character on any team, and she compromised a lot of roles that could fill up on a squad that you might need. Around that time as well is when corrosion started being a lot more prominent in Abyss, and also pyro shields, which solidified her viability on any Abyss team because she could fill a lot of roles on a team. I mean, many people would run a Kokomi on their Abyss team simply to get rid of that one pyro lector that was on that one floor, I believe in floor 12. I also have to mention that the meta in this game, or the meta in this game, yeah, it stays relatively the same. Each patch, it rarely changes. This game doesn't have much difficulty, and sure, there are some characters that spike the scales at times, but even when that happens, it isn't as that specific character power creeps to rest. I mean, if we take a look at Yelon, for example, sure, on paper she's better than Xingshu, but he also brings things to the table that Yelon doesn't, like interruption resistance and slight damage reduction, small healing. Yelon can't do any of those, and the interruption resist is very useful and you definitely don't tend to notice it until it's off your team. You tend to notice how useful interruption resist can be, especially on specific characters like Sino and many other characters that can very well benefit off interruption resistance. Now, this isn't to say that MiHoYo will just implement mechanics into the game for her, but I wouldn't put it past them because they have before. Now, there are many things that could make Dehya a good character that we might not even know about, like how she behaves when taking certain types of damage. If she were able to soak up corrosion damage on a team, she might actually have some use on the team that's dealing with a lot of Rift Hounds, because corrosion is becoming very, very common now in Abyss, and it's becoming very annoying to deal with. It demands a healer on their party so you don't die, and Rift Hounds have been very prominent in the Abyss. Having Dehya's soak up damage, or tanking role, I should say, if it were able to soak up corrosion, it would be very nice. But of course, this is all speculation, and I'm just theorizing what her tanking capabilities could be. For all we know, she could only tank direct damage, or I don't know, damage that you take on head on. So poison and stuff like burning wouldn't even count as damage that she would take, but who knows. We also don't know if she's going to receive a dedicated artifact set or not, which we all know by now that artifacts essentially make or break a character. They could introduce an artifact set that very well does what I mentioned before, that it increases damage based on the damage you take. So there's still that to look into, as well as many other things. But this whole Dehya situation going on right now, it got me thinking about all these should you pull videos. Honestly, from a non-meta perspective, I've always dismissed those type of videos. Maybe because I'm looking at them from more of a casual view, but I think regardless of whether a character is amazing or just decent, you should pull for them. If you actually really like the character or not. I personally find myself pulling for characters because of their design and their in-game personalities. And then obviously their kit afterwards. But still, I prefer their design a lot more. I just enjoy looking at the character. I think pulling simply because the character is good or not kind of takes away from the world building of the game and the shine that a lot of characters have when it comes to them in like story quest. Although I do know people tend to just dismiss the story in this game, but now if you do want to pull a character because of their usefulness, obviously that's perfectly fine. You should be able to pull for whoever you want without being scrutinized, and obviously many people play the game differently, so just do pulling by your own merit. Whether you think the character is going to be good or not, or if you just like their design, it should always be up to you. You shouldn't have someone telling you that you have to pull for this character because they're amazing, or because you shouldn't pull for this character because they're just bad and they have no use. Personally, all it just comes down to preference, like I said before. And again, like I've mentioned before, that the difficulty in this game isn't really existent except for Abyss. So pulling for the character you like is what ideally you should do. I personally am still pulling for Dehya, preferably C1, despite the fact that she will be on the standard banner. So if you aren't thinking about pulling for Dehya, just know she will be on the standard banner. So you might end up pulling her anyway. So maybe that'll change your opinion on whether or not you should pull on this banner that's coming up in 3.5. But this video isn't about whether or not you should pull for Dehya, more so that there are a few misconceptions about the character and what her future capabilities could be. All this to say though, I am indeed a Dehya simp and I'm going to be pulling for her. So yeah, that's about it. Anyway, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you don't, then just leave a dislike and tell me in the comments what you disliked about the video. If you're going to be pulling for Dehya or not, also mention that in the comments. Catch you guys in the next upload.